Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, you know it's always a wonderful day to report some great news about you watching acolytes of the cult have reality smack them right in the face and have it shake them right down to their very core when it turns out that the world rejects their ideology, when it doesn't want anything to do with it, it finds it disgusting, disrespectful, and absolutely downright evil in so many different ways out there. And when this does happen, which we've seen quite a lot in 2024, whether we need to talk about the Justice League game out there, if we need to talk about, Dustborn or so many other things that have absolutely, Star Wars Outlaws. How could I have possibly forgotten about Star Wars Outlaws and the disastrous dumpster fire that game is turning out? Yes, there are a lot of people out there who say that 2024 is the year that the woke goes to die. And well, ladies and gentlemen, they are absolutely shaking in their boots. The enemy is terrified that guess what? They cannot rewrite the world in their own image, and nobody wants any part of this nonsense in any way, shape, or form. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a joyous thing to talk about, to make these people who have been evil towards anybody that disagreed with them over the years, that have tried to get people canceled, that have tried to destroy people's lives, that have tried to go out there and get people's entire way of life and making money completely and totally removed from them. Yes, it is fun, it is joyous, and yes, we will revel. We will absolutely revel in their fear and in their uncertainty, because that is exactly what they have tried to make us feel for decades. They have tried to convince us that we were the freaks, that we were insane, that we were crazy for not loving all of their diversity, inclusion, and equity, that we were just a bunch of phobes and ists and everything else out there because we didn't like their garbage games, because they decided to not only concentrate on diversity, inclusion, and equity, i.e. their agenda and their messaging, over good gameplay, which Star Wars Outlaws is a prime example of that. They wanted to go out of their way to make sure they owned the chuds by making sure that the male gays didn't get any appreciation in their video games. Well, how's that worked out for you? The biggest video game disaster in history. 8 years of development, hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain in less than 10 days. And guess what? The reality that has smacked Firewalk Studios and everybody else that was involved in this abomination of a game that was Concord is now shaking in their boots, because guess what? They can't rewrite the world in their own image. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to share this article from That Park Place, getting all the juicy details and listen to all of their quivering of they're so afraid of what the future holds for them. But before we do, if you do enjoy our content, hit that like button, share with all your friends, and subscribe or follow if you have not already, because boys and girls, we are grinding, we are growing, and I cannot do this without every single one of you. And if you'd like to help support our efforts, make sure you check out the links in the description down below. Also, leave us a comment, let you know, does this surprise you in any way, shape, or form? Do you think this is sad to see that they're so scared for their futures? Or are you like so many of us out there, what? It's finally nice to see the shoe on the other foot for once. Let us know what you think about all that in the comment section down below. So, former owner of Concord developer shaken to the core by game's failure, but ignoring any discussions of DEI or wokeness leading to its downfall. Oh, color us shocked there that when reality smacks them in the face and the world rejects their nonsense, they just bury their hands in the sand like an ostrich. Oh, wow. No, I'm not listening. You're wrong. You're racist. You're phobic. Yeah, that's exactly what they're doing right now. The former owner, and of course, who wasn't ready to sign up for this tank and play as this character? Wow, color us shocked there that this failed. The former owner of Concord developer Firewalk Studios, probably Monsters, is reportedly too shaken to the core by Concord's abysmal failure. But management is allegedly ignoring any discussion on DEI or wokeness being the cause of the game's downfall. Come on. Who didn't want to play as this trans singer out there? Look at those shoulder pads. Doesn't this just scream an awesome hero that can take down the evils out there in the world? Yeah, no, not so much. Probably Monsters, whose CEO and founder is Harold Ryan, the former president and chairman of board at Bungie. Oh, it's almost like they're all interconnected. Boy, I wonder why all this woke stuff's coming out right now. Sold Firewalk Studios and Concord to Sony back in April 2023. Considering the disastrous dumpster fire has been, probably the smartest move that man ever made. A press release from Sony shared, yada, yada, yada. We don't need to go over all of that. We know the history, yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, Firewalk Studios released Concord at the end of August, and it was already dead. On Steam, the game failed to have more than 700 concurrent players. Yes, 697 was its peak. Compare that to Space Marine 2 that just came out. That isn't about diversity. It isn't about inclusion. It isn't about equity. It's about a giant, oversized men souped up to the nines in giant power armor out there just eliminating, purging the heresy and purging the Xeno scum. It had like over 200,000 people playing on a Monday when the game released. Concord couldn't break 697 peak concurrent in the entire 10 days that it existed. I wonder why. Well, because nobody was buying the game. It did not fare on PlayStation, with PSN profiles reporting that only 1,539 individuals owned the game. They couldn't get 1,600 people on PlayStation to buy a game that was produced by Sony. How much of an abysmal failure. No wonder it got yanked in 10 days. But of course, the people responsible for this disastrous dumpster fire will never admit why they failed, because if they, for even a single second, think that their woke agenda is not the proper moral right way that will put them on the right side of history going forward, then all the evil things that they have done to try to damage and destroy the people that choose to ignore and disagree with their agenda, well, I guess what? It turns out, yeah, you're the baddie after all. Weird concept, because that doesn't justify all of your evil actions if the world rejects it and it's not the way things are going. Now, is it? Yes, you're the baddies. Following the poor sales, Firewalk Studios game director Ryan Ellis announced in a blog post on the official PlayStation website that the game was being shut down less than 2 weeks after it released. Obviously, we've gone over all of that quite a lot of it over there. They offered full refunds, and they actually, not only did PlayStation offer full refunds on this, they also removed it from your PlayStation if you'd already downloaded it and had it on your hard drive. They went into your system and deleted the game after issuing you a refund. Physical media, anyone? Because trust me, Concord is going to be a collector's item for an example of the most disastrous dumpster fire in video game history. Ladies and gentlemen, in the history of video games out there. So, the game went dark on September 6th, but the day before it was shut down, the company's senior concept artist, Amanda Kiefer, revealed that employees are terrified of the future. I was going to DM you after seeing this, but this site makes me pay to do that. So at the risk of getting dogpiled, I'm just going to say this. A lot affected the art side of Concord, including design by committee. Oh, wow. It sounds like it's almost the exact same thing in Hollywood as it is in the video game development. Everything's done by a committee and they vote on things. How has that design by committee worked out for Hollywood with their scripts for television and movies? Yeah, didn't work out so well for them either, did it? Color us shocked that it also doesn't work inside of the video game industry, yet they're still deploying the exact same tactics across the board. It's almost like it's coordinated and all of these people believe in the exact same ideology and how to operate the exact same way. Weird. I'm sure it's not Marxism at all, though, in any way, shape, or form. And a failure of some leadership to listen to the art team. Yes, these are artists. They know that somebody who literally looks like, I don't know, a pear inside of armor is not going to sell very well for people that like to look at art, because art is supposed to be beautiful and inspiring, not disgusting and to push your agenda. So she goes on to say, I like the fact that she pointed that out there, because I think the committee thing is a big thing. So you know what? The fact that she's coming out and talking about this, I give her no hate whatsoever. I give no hate for whatsoever. Sometimes you're just forced into decisions you don't want to make. But at any point, you could have quit and walked away. You chose to stay. Just an FYI. And you could have done that for a million reasons, and maybe they're good reasons. But at the end of the day, you did still choose to stay and participate in this. So she goes on to put out there and say, because of posts like yours, though understandable, are unfortunately ill-timed. None of us know which way the wind will blow with the studio. We are worried, sick, and terrified of the future. Not only that, we've been shouldering the brunt of the emotional labor as executive and directors dodge most of the blame. Yes, indeed. The people that are most responsible for this, the people that push the agenda, the people that make these final decisions are running and hiding right now, burying their heads in the sand, ladies and gentlemen. Behind the scenes, all of this talk about Concord and character designs, people's livelihoods are at risk, and there are very financial consequences that might hurt us even more. Yeah, you're all going to get fired. Your studio is going to be closed down because you have a game that was in development for 8 years and cost hundreds of millions of dollars that failed. That is the #1 failure in video game history. You beat out E.T. You beat out E.T. So yeah, there's a very good possibility that you're all going to get fired. So now a source close to Probably Monsters informs that Park Place, that Probably Monsters has been shaken to the core due to not only the game's failure, but to the extent that it failed. Remember, Probably Monsters was a company that was responsible for Concord before Sony bought it. Like I said, probably smartest decision he ever made to sell Firewalk Studios to Sony. Get out while the getting's good, after all. While the company and its employees have been shaken by the failure, one thing that is not shaking them, and that they are not even acknowledging, is the game's embrace of woke ideology, diversity, inclusion, and equity. Interestingly, this source also confirmed that Park Place, that the company did indeed have discussions beforehand about how heavy it would embrace woke ideology. As shown in the game's final product, it does not appear that the dissenting voices were able to bring any reason to those wanting to insert the woke ideology, and now it appears executives want to bury their heads in the sand. Because of course, why not? At some point, you're going to get drowned out by the cult. That's why they do this stuff by committee, so they can have a bunch of activists in there shouting you down if they disagree with you. All these committee meetings are nothing more than struggle sessions for anybody that disagrees with the agenda, right? We've seen this kind of stuff happen time and time again. This is how they do it. They surround you with people who make you think you're the crazy one, who make you think you're in the wrong, that you're the evil, that you're the baddie. When it turns out, when the reality absolutely smacks them in the face, it turns out, yes, you were the baddie after all. And I'm sure any of the good quality artists, anybody that actually had any kind of common sense whatsoever, got out and refused to do this. But I'm sure there was probably some desperate people out there who just decided to keep their mouths shut, keep their heads down, and draw whatever these moronic individuals responsible for this disastrous dumpster fire wanted them to draw. And look, I get it. Paychecks are important. Money is important. You got to be able to feed your family. But at some point, at what point do you decide that your soul and not pushing an evil agenda out there into the world that damages and destroys so many things, at what point is that worth more than the money? That's a question anybody working inside these corporations has to ask themselves. Interestingly, the source also informed that they didn't have yet, burying their heads in sand. If what the source says is true, other projects coming out of Probably Monsters incubation, as well as their Battle Barge and Hidden Grove studios, are most definitely at risk at being infected by the woke ideology and leading to similar disasters such as Concord. Ironically, this head and in the style of management is exactly how Fireworks Doom operated following the intense negative backlash from gamers showcased during that. Obviously, we went over all of that. The fact that she basically, like when the question about the negative response to the trailer and all of that kind of stuff came out, she just basically completely and totally blew it off. But this is the real question. This is the real question. Are they going to change anything? Because they're shaken to the core. But it sounds like no. They're all true believers. So this Monster Studios, Firewalk Studios, unless they are flat out removed from their positions, fired and closed down, which is very much in the realm of possibility. We saw the exact same thing happen with the Saints Row reboot that tried to make it woke and insane and ended up being a broken and buggy mess on top of having the ideology shoved right into it. Well, that studio's gone. They no longer exist. They closed shop. Everybody got fired, the doors got locked, and everybody went home. And the real question is, will Sony or any of these other corporations have the balls to do the exact same thing after such a woke, disastrous dumpster fire. I'd imagine this is going to be something that we're going to hear about a lot of very quiet layoffs going forward. If not a full-blown announcement that Firewalk Studios is closing after the disastrous dumpster fire, or they'll go, we're going to reimagine it. We're going to streamline it. Firewalk Studios will still exist, but none of you that have ever worked here will ever be working here again. I don't know what the future holds for that studio out there. I don't know what the future holds for all these people that are shaken to the core because their ideology got put out there into the public and got handedly rejected. So bad that it led to the most disastrous dumpster fire in video game history. Concord, a game that was in 8 years in development, that hundreds of millions of dollars was spent on, was shut down and shuttered in less than 10 days. If that doesn't prove go woke, go broke is a time and tested true statement, I don't know what will for you, boys and girls. Concord is a disaster. Everyone inside these companies should be terrified for their jobs. And at the end of the day, you did it to yourselves and you get exactly what you deserve.